Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum FP&A Innovation 2024. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab on the right-hand side of your console next to chat. Afterwards, if you're eligible to receive credit, you'll receive an email with a link to your certificates. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Bruno Oliveira, Head of FP&A, Swissport. We're super excited to have Bruno and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Agile and Flexible FP&A. Welcome, Bruno. Over to you.
Yes, hi guys. Welcome. Thank you for this opportunity to be here discussing this very important topic in our panel discussion of Agile and Flexible FP&A. I think that there's a very interesting topic talking about why do we need to be agile and flexible in this finance context, and also focusing on the FP&A function, right? I invite now the other panelists to introduce themselves. We have now Erica, Brian, and Stephen. Erica, can you start, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bruno. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Campbell. I was former head of FP&A at TransUnion, where I oversaw 1.8 billion in product revenue for the horizontal segment of the business. I'm excited to be here today, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Erica. Brian, can you go on, please?
Yeah. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Brian Frederick. I am currently the director of FP&A with Animal Supply Company. We are a pet supply distribution company that's based in the United States. Been here for 2 years. And I look forward to the discussion and learning from the other panelists.
Very nice, Brian. And Stephen?
Yeah, so my name is Stephen Schnell. I am a director of corporate FP&A at Medline Industries, which is a med-surg supplier and manufacturer here in the U.S.
Yes, very nice. Just complementing my presentation, work now in Swissport, Mexico. I'm Brazilian, and it's very nice to be here with you guys. So I would like to start just about this topic that we talked: agility, flexibility, the words of this topic, right? We have such a complex environment of finance nowadays. We know that all these technological tools that are appearing every time, like promises solution for our challenges, for our daily challenges, but it's very hard to understand how could we do something that is really agile, that is really flexible, and that is like suitable for our days. We know that we have a lot of challenges, we have a lot to do. We know that FP&A, we are always like sitting in other areas, tables, and it's not that simple to have such processes that develop it. So in this context that FP&A is in constant evolution, how do you see that your companies are in this scenario? How, for example, Erica, do you see that? I know that you're in a transition, but how your previous company it was in this evolution of being more agile and being more flexible in FP&A?
Yeah, absolutely, Bruno. I've been in this space for quite a long time, and I would say that, you know, when I first started out, very early career, it was bottoms and seats for finance associates, right? Everyone had to be in the office. It was customary that we were there 5 days a week, probably working 50 hours a work week.
Yes.
And so we were always on call, weekends, you name it. We were always there, right? What I've seen, you know, since COVID is we were kind of forced to do things differently. And I never would have thought that, you know, finance associates would have been able to work remote, but COVID showed us that we're actually, for my team, we were much more productive remote. We didn't have the, you know, interruptions that normally happen in the office when we're in the middle of reconciling spreadsheets. We didn't have the interruptions when we were trying to close the books, because we were sitting at our, you know, our own spaces, our home offices, getting things done. And it actually made for a much faster closing, much more accuracy in the information that was being provided the first time around. And we didn't have to work on weekends. That's how we became very agile, right? And so one of the things that we recognized was because of the increased productivity, there wasn't a reason for us to, you know, now pick up the computer on a Saturday and Sunday and work the long additional hours, which again was highly appreciative. Now, the flip side of that is sometimes you may have to work a little bit later in the afternoons because you were home, but the reality is we were getting it done in 3 days versus five. And that was a huge improvement for our business. And that was one of the ways that we became very agile and we looked at how we could continue that path even coming out of COVID.
Yes, yes, very nice. It's very nice to begin reaching this maturity in the team, you know, to how we can be a value creation function for the company, and also balance well this with well-being, with a life quality that we all need in our corporate environment, right? Stephen,
Absolutely.
can you share something about your experience on like, and I think that's very nice this point that Erica mentioned about team building, about life quality. How do you see that we can like evolve the FP&A function, balancing with all of these that we know that is very hard in finance because we are like in everything, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from my experience, one of the big changes that I've seen over my career is shifting from a very like structured, close-related responsibilities, report running, to more of a strategic business partner. And working with your business partner on a day-to-day basis to help them make decisions and help them understand their data and help them run their business. I think this inherently makes um, the role more flexible, more agile, because instead of just waiting till that time of the month or that time of the quarter, where you're going to look at the numbers with your business partner and come up
We're
with your forecast.
actively doing something. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
So instead of like having that routine, instead working with your business partners, sitting with them, understand what they're going through, and kind of building that narrative or model as you go throughout, a course of a month or a quarter or whatever it might be, I think allows you to be more flexible and agile. So breaking down some of those calendars and structure and allowing FP&A individuals to just do their job, being a strategic business partner. So that's my perspective.
Yes, perfect, perfect. And this is not just about having like periodic agendas or something too much, how to say, too much define it, but sometimes actively look for a business partner and say, hey, I was thinking about something. Can we discuss it? And embrace this opportunity to every time that you are with a strategic business partner move things forward, right? I really I made a note here. I really like an FP&A influencer called Brett Hampson, and he tells that we as FP&A we need to have like systems for everything. I really like this quote, and he says that it makes our life easier, more consistent, and the main point is more impactful, right? Because as Erica said, when we reach this point of being more structured in FP&A, more agile, more flexible, the impact that we have in the organization is exponential, So, Brian, what can you share with us about your experience on also like evolving the FP&A function, structuring better the things? I know that we have almost all the time challenges with accounting, challenges with treasury, but we need to also embrace this um, them as business partners too, not just the functional areas of the business, but the other finance functions, right? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think where finance has moved and FP&A has moved, it's and Stephen and Erica touched on this, right? It used to be so heavy on month-end close, plan, and forecast, right? I Now I think about my month and my quarter and everything, and that piece of it has kind of dwindled down to maybe about 10% of what I actually truly spend my time on, and what my team is looking at, and what we focus on more is how can we help drive the business, make the right decisions, get involved in business cases, get involved in customer negotiations. How do we really build up the business and grow the business? Involved in negotiation with vendors. Well, all these different type of things that we've now been able to, we're no longer taking Excel dumps out of an ERP, putting it into an Excel and doing all these pivot tables or whatever. We've now gotten tools that we've been able to use that give us the answers within minutes and seconds, where it used to be, it would take, when someone asked a question, 2 hours to possibly get to the right answer. So that is allowing us to be more valuable to our operations team, to our sales team, and to the other functions within the business. And then when we think about how do we partner with treasury and accounting, it allows them to, we're not always down their neck, right? We're not like, hey, are you guys done? Or have you done all your entries and everything? It's given them, I hope, a little bit more of a breathing room, and we're not driving them like, hey, you got to get this done by workday 3 so that we can close the book, so we can tell the CFO how we're doing. We have the more real-time answers with some of the tools that have been implemented.
Exactly, because most of the time we had challenges with other finance functions that kind of give us let us stack it. I don't know if you already passed something similar to it, but in my experience, for example, um, there are times that we are in this dilemma of we help other functions to grow, or do we focus on the value creation function of the FP&A needs to deliver? But we need to find a balance of it too, because you need to have quality information to give better insights, but also you need to keep looking at the business as a business owner. If you're an analyst, if you're a coordinator, if you're a senior manager, you need to have like, and I think that this is a very important point. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for your insights. So I think the next point that I would like to bring here, it's that we are approaching the most expected time of the year for FP&A, for financial planning, for strategic finance. That is like business plan times, the budget times, the forecast times, uh, and that is like a never-ending cycle. And how do you think that agile and flexible FP&A techniques could help in this planning construction? Can you share something about it, Erica? I think as most of us here, we already participated in tons of budgets and business plans and business cases and everything. So with this advance of the technology and techniques, how do you think that we can do better these processes?
Yeah, hey, it's a great question. I think my colleagues on the call said it best. It's really looking at it from a strategic focus, right? So every year you would expect that you're going to have a 3-year planning process, right? You're going to really understand for the next 3 years, where's my business going? Where do they decide to be? Like, how are we going to get there? Is it going to be organic or inorganic growth? And then from there, you start to make plans, right? You start to look at the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And those 18 months typically spread into the planning process for the following year. And as you're starting to look at that, you start to say, strategically, are there things that are happening this year that will carry over? Are there new things that are coming up on the cycle? If I'm looking at where I want to grow from a bottom line perspective or top line perspective, are there things in my pipeline that I need to materialize? And then you start to work through that process. So strategically, you've already started to do that. As Stephen mentioned, your business partners, right? You're no longer just sitting back and just running numbers and running reports. Your business partners. So you have a seat at the table. You're sitting at the table. You're listening to the discussions. You're listening to the plans. You're hearing the pathway of organic or inorganic growth. You're listening to the pricing conversations. You're listening to the increases that are coming in the coming year. You are bringing to the table discretionary spend and how it can be minimized so that you can hit your EBITDA targets. So all those things are happening in tandem each and every month, right? Whether it's through a mid-month forecast or whether it's through an end-of-month forecast or quarter forecast, as Brian mentioned, you're talking about it. And so because you're talking about it proactively and early on, and sometimes 12 to 18 months out, you're naturally going to be in a position to, again, make sure that budget is on key, make sure that you're in a good place to, the variables that you need to add or watch out for from a market standpoint. You're already ahead of the game, which is great. Again, that's that whole business partner strategic view. And as Brian mentioned, collaboration, right? You can talk to your accounting and finance friends to find out if there's anything that's coming up from a obsolete material or any type of anything that's in the pipeline that you need to account for, right? And so that's the collaboration piece of it. Again, getting ahead of it, you're talking about it 12 to 18 months out so that when that financial cycle does come around and you're planning, it's more of a what tweaks do I need to make versus what do I need to put in, because you've been putting in the pieces all along and you've been monitoring it. So at that point in time, it just becomes, what do I need to tweak? Did my numbers hit? Do I need to make any adjustments for how I've been performing as we walk into next year? That helps
No,
with an
is
agile.
it? Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. I think that one of the most important things that when we think about the planning process is to have it as more integrated as possible with all the areas. And
Mhm.
this is the big challenge, right? How do we make, for example, operations to help us as more detailed as possible and as more agile as possible in the planning process, for example? In my company, I have an example that um, Swissport provides aviation services to airlines, right? Um,
Mhm.
we don't control our demand. If the airline decides, for example, to reduce in 20% their flight schedule, we need to adjust our costs. That's what we need to do. So, how could I be as more um, as more assertive as possible to understand and to look as far as possible this flight schedule of my client, right? Because if I have, for example, just a 30 or 60 days view of it, maybe I will not be able to adjust my cost as fast as I need. So this planning process, when we integrate all the other areas in this agile process, it is the ideal, right? And we know that we have challenge here in communication, in tools, in timing, and this is very hard to manage because it was supposed that the CFO and the FP&A function should be the maestro of all of it, right? But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. So, Brian, can you share a little bit of how are you evolving in your company in the planning process, and how do you see that an agile and flexible mindset uh, could help, or maybe are you already working in some of it?
Yeah, so we are actually implementing kind of a change in how we've done the plan process in the past. So before it used to be finance drove 100% of it, and it was really it was a 2-month sprint, 3-month sprint. Well, we're actually going to start that a lot earlier. We are separating the operational plan and what are the goals of the sales team and our operations facilities, our distribution centers, from the overall financial component of that. get all the inputs up front, get those now and in the next 2 months, right? So that by the time we get to August, it's now a math exercise. It's not a back and forth. And we present them then with what are we showing? Based on what you've told us, this is where the math is telling you that you're going to be. These are the drivers that you have the opportunity to make some improvements. But really understanding, especially when we have the sales side, like, what are you hearing from your customers? Let's really get that up front instead of like, well, you know what, you need a 5% growth. Go get it. Well,
Yes,
you hear
based
from
on
sales.
what, right? Based
So
on
what's
what?
that based off, right? And that's how,
Yes, yes.
historically finance has always been, here's 5%, go. And we got to change it, right? Because otherwise you get to the compensation, you get the commissions and everything, like, well, you gave me a commission plan that's not possible to hit. So we got to really get with the sales team up front and then work that through with our distribution center. So that's one of the things that we're looking at and kind of really becoming that the key person at the table to help the sales team and the operations team. And then we'll work with the other functions.
No, sure, sure. And this helps a lot when you're gonna tell the story to the board, for example, to approve a budget, to approve a business plan, to approve anything you're going on. The story must match. It must not be like 5% from where, right? This validates our job and is not a scenario that I think in how we need to do FP&A and finance function today, like acceptable. And but really nice for you to share with us these, because it's just about it. It's just about break, understand the origins and how we could. It's like FP&A nowadays is like creating all the time roadmaps, like where we need to. It's like bridging things, right? Where we need to go, where we are, what is the pathway, right? Everything all the time. So, Steven, can you share a little bit about this process too? And I really like to introduce another thing, and if you like, if you could please um, just join the themes for us in your answer, talking about driver-based planning and forecasting, because there's a lot of interesting to approach here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like we planned this. I was going to include that in my answer, anyways. But I think when I'm thinking about how to execute on a flexible and agile planning process, two things that come to mind for my organization is, number one, statistical modeling or some type of analytics to help us put a pure math number next to the driver build, right? We're going to be working with, specifically in sales, we're going to be working with our sales leaders to understand new customer acquisitions, what their expectation is for market growth, market capture. But in addition to that, what do the numbers say? What does the pure history say? And we have a group here that is running those numbers for us and giving us an expectation of, hey, if you just wanted to look at the math unemotionally, this is what it might look like from a growth perspective. And then in addition to that, I think the other piece is our driver-based planning and forecasting. So I think a lot of times it can be difficult for a leader to just look at numbers and, do these numbers feel right? Do these numbers not feel right from a business person's perspective? By, drilling down to a specific driver, again, for sales, we might say, how many new customers are we going to have? How many new SKUs in each new customer are we going to have? How many new SKUs in existing customer? If we're using those drivers, they can get a little more comfortable with how they're thinking about their business instead of just, hey, revenue is going to grow 10% next year. And then in addition to that, the driver-based modeling allows us to more easily connect the planning process throughout the organization. So if you have a group that's forecasting your freight expense or something along those lines, the person that's sitting in your product divisions might be thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to need to get my sales forecast from the sales team. I need my freight, forecast from the freight team. I need all these different inputs, right? Well, if you build a model that is purely based off drivers, they can provide you the driver, and you can utilize that driver to then, perform the planning on your end. So I think those two things are what makes it, a much more palatable process, especially in an organization like ours, where our business partners, this is not just a finance exercise. The business partners and business leaders have a large say in the output. So being able to get them on board using, like I said, the math as well as drivers is super helpful in our processes.
Yes, yes. This is very important because when you use the drivers to build our models, to build our plans, it's very easy to make adjustments. It's very easy to track what are the pathway to grow, what to make, for example, in linear regression, to understand each driver, what is the weight of each driver in our results, for example, to see, okay, if the sales grows 10%, what result do we have in EBITDA? But if the costs reduce 10%, it's the same effect. So we can try to explore these and to understand root causes and to simulate the scenarios, right? Because I think another point very important here, um, in the business plan process, in the budget process, is to create scenarios, right? When we're going to the board, to a board meeting, when we're going to even like a C-level meeting that is maybe previous of the board meeting, we need to be able to explain these possible market effects, right? Or inflation effects, or other kind of effects that may be applicable to our numbers, and that can be maybe a risk or maybe an opportunity to the period that we are planning. So when we talk about multiple modeling, when we talk about scenario planning, what do you see, Erica, that we can use in this process? What I want to know is like, uh, exactly, how, for example, in your previous companies, did you do this scenario planning? What kind of scenario were you exploring? How is this process for you in your experience?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost thing that comes to mind is you got to know how you make money, right? How does your business make money? Does your business make money by selling credit reports? Does your business make money by, when the market is utilizing all things credit, you're up, or when they're not utilizing it, it's down. And again, those variables will change based on the company that you work for. Are you a recurring revenue type of company where you have a monthly recurring revenue, or are you a company that has to go out and create new revenue streams, whether it be every 6 months or 12 months? And so I think the first thing that happens in scenario planning is you got to understand, how do you make money, right? And so if I'm thinking about, specifically TransUnion, I think about, when the financial industry takes a hit, so does the company, right? Because all things are impacted by the consumer's use of the credit, documents, the credit report, the credit profile. And so if you're in the financial services industry, if you're in the insurance industry, if you are in the private sector, and you're not pulling, your credit information for an auto loan, or for a credit card app, or for, the refinancing of a house, then our finances are impacted, our revenue model is impacted. And so in the scenario planning, you got to plan for that, right? You have to understand, what percent of my company, or what percent of my business is really driven by that. And you have to account for, a period of time where you may not know when that market is going to rebound. For those things, when we see that inflation hits an all-time high, you see that other things hit an all-time low. And so scenario planning means that you really have to understand the variables that really impact and drive how you make money as a company, And so for TransUnion, we understand how we make money. And so in our scenario planning, we do actually very similar to what Stephen was saying. We do have a model. We do have variables that we input in that model. We have an idea based on historical information of what our attrition is. We have an idea based on our historical information of what our new customer acquisition model looks like. We also have an idea based on historical information of, what our growth percentage is. We don't provide scenario analysis to the board. We actually provide a range. And so that range is usually a composition of many different scenarios that we've looked at for where we think we can hit. We've attached a probability to those scenarios and a probability to the variables that we're able to probability weight. And when we give that range, whether it's a range on two things. It's a range on revenue, and it's also a range on EBITDA. It's usually based on a percentage basis, and so we do that to again account for any type of unknown adjustments or unknown things that could happen in the market dynamics, because we are heavily impacted by things that happen from a market adjustment standpoint, such as, again, the mortgage industry and what has happened with that over the past couple of years. So I say that to say you have to understand how your business makes money. That goes into your scenario planning process. And then what you can do is account for that as you put a weight probability on those things from an economic or regional standpoint that may impact your ability to grow that top line.
No, very nice, very nice. And for me, this is kind of new, and I really liked it, the way of working like sensibility analysis for ranges, because I think we are very used to working the way that we learn in Excel. It's like, I don't know, 5%, 10%, 15%, or something like even smaller, like 2, 4, 6, 8%. And I really like this approach, Erica. Very, very nice, very nice. I think that the point that I would like to bring here is that the key word for providing agile and flexible FP&A um, in, in this aspect of scenario planning, of multiple scenario exploration, it's integration, because we need to be able to quickly explain, for example, these range changes, not just about maybe EBITDA, but to cash, to accounts receivable, how all these scenarios can affect more aspects of finance and more aspects of our business, And Brian, I don't know, do you make in our company like a three-statement planning? How do you, for example, plan cash in the budget process? Can you share a little bit of it?
Yeah, cash is one of the most important things, right? So we got to be able to do that. And so it's really looking at, what is our sales projections, along with what do we have from our purchasing that we need from a COGS perspective and the other expenses. But at the end of the day, as a private company, we have covenants that we have to hit. So we have to ensure that we are achieving those to make sure that we're not default. So that ultimately can drive some of the changes that we would have in the scenarios that we need to look at to make sure that we're not in at risk of violating any covenants. So, it'll go a lot of times if we have to look at it, and it can come down to capital. Instead of making some capital investments, we might just say, you know what? We can't make the capital investment in Q1 or Q2. We're going to do those in Q3, Q4, as we build up the cash that we have from the sales, and we make negotiations with our vendors that we're buying the product from. And how do we get some additional early pay discounts or something like that to help us drive up some additional cash?
Sure, sure. I think the point here is to integrate these assumptions in the planning process, like such as, okay, for having this amount of cash in the end of 2024, for example, we need to maybe have 10 additional payment days with these, and this provider, for example, that are strategic of that that we have more volume of purchasing. So as I said in the beginning, FP&A has this kind of maestro role, and we need to be uh, we need to be bold to propose this kind of things, because procurement, you're gonna say, I can't, but it's easy to say can't. No, we need to explore. We need to try, or need to find a way together to reach like the plan or the ideal scenario for the future, right? And I was talking about integration, and I know that is not easy in our current days to to, to make our teams build all these modeling and integrated and automated is not that easy in the real life, you know. And Stephen, I would like to ask you, um, do you have experience, I don't know, what kind of tools do you use in your company to have this planning process for budget, for forecasting, for I don't know, even the maybe a weekly or monthly outlook. How do you make it? And regarding the tools, what do you use in your company? Can you share a little
Yeah,
about it?
so yeah, there's several tools, that different teams utilize. Our main tool for planning is Oracle EPM, which we actually implemented over like the past couple of years, and kind of have tailored to us. And it's been a good change. I know that depending on different organizations, like that might be something that's a little bit too high level. However, for us, as a way to just consolidate all the information, consolidate all the assumptions. Historically, our business was a little more siloed, where each kind of like product owner ran their own business, right? Or each sales channel ran their own business. So this has been our way to kind of bring everybody together and break down those silos a little bit and tell a more complete enterprise level story.
Yeah,
However, I don't think I'm necessarily an expert on tools or technology. I've never really been a part of an implementation or selecting what tools to use. So I'm kind of a more of like a relationships guy versus a technology guy. So
no,
I'll let
but
I'll
that
defer
is
to my
important too. That is very important too.
other
Sure.
panel participants to see if anybody's got a better story.
No, sure, sure. Erica is laughing. I think that Erica
No,
has a
I,
lot
I'm this.
to share.
No, because I'm on the same page with Steven. So I echo the same thing. I mean, I haven't been a part of that level of an implementation. I've been a tester for an implementation, but not part of what we select. And so I'm laughing and smiling because I echo what Steven said, and I'm happy I didn't get that question because I would have had to defer it. We use one.
No, don't.
Yeah, so I'll jump in because I did come in to animal supply just over 2 years ago, and one of the first things I did was implement OneStream. And so we went through and we did
We work with one string here too. Very, very nice. I
okay,
really like
yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
So we've now been live on that for just over a year, and it's a continual evolution of what new tools we're going to be installing. So I'm constantly looking at what tools can we use from finance that will help us be more agile, more flexible, do these driver-based forecasts and everything right in the single tool. So again, how do we get out of Excel 100% of our day or 98% of our day and get into a tool that is designed to do that? So yeah, we selected that. We went from, and it saved us a ton of time into just our close and everything like that. So I don't know. But yeah,
No,
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 we're new on
no, very,
OneStream as
very
well.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I
the
echo that,
the
Brian. We're still learning how to, like, we just implemented over a year ago, and there's a lot of what I would say efficiencies that we were seeing already. We also started using Tableau as a form of trying to do some predictive analytics as well as being able to look at historicals. And so we're exploring that as well, but not sure it'll hit the planning cycle piece of it. OneStream will be the single point of reference, but I definitely echo that there's a lot of opportunity in OneStream.
Yes, I really like that OneString has this integration with Excel, that we can upload and download information really, really fast, to understand the scenarios. You can change, for example, exchange rate. You can break down information by all the dimensions that it exists. And we are here integrating now with SAP to have to bring everything from the accounting directly to OneStream for reporting. We use for reporting and use to control budget and forecast too, to actuals, budget, and forecast. And it's really nice. Again, integration is everything, right? And when we talk about agile and flexible FP&A, is the key is to find how do we integrate things better, faster, more accurately, and how do we make this process easier for the whole company? Because for finance, it's easy to understand these kind of things. We are very used to to systems, to tools, to Excel. Everyone look at us for help in Excel when they need something. I think that this happened with you a lot. But how could we orchestrate this whole process within the whole company uh, in a quick way and somehow not harming and not breaking this relation that is so needed with the business partners, right, Stephen? You mentioned a lot about business partnering, and I think that this is very important in this process of agile and flexible growing too. What else can you share about your experience in this business partner role that finance and FP&A need to do? We have here
Yeah,
in the audience Danny Martins. Danny Martins is a colleague of me in Brazil. It's a very highlighted FP&A professional, and she tells a lot about the business partnering role also. So, what can you tell us about it, Stephen, please?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges in a business partnering role, especially getting to the point of like that strategic business partner versus just, an FP&A person that kind of sends them information once a month, is you kind of have to gain their trust and show them value. You have to show them that by spending time with you, they're going to be able to do their job better. They're going to be able to make better decisions. The ultimate goal is that they want you at the table. They want you in the meetings. And really the only way to do that is, again, gain trust, kind of put in the work on the front end to show the value that you can provide. So I kind of view it on finance. I mean, I guess it's both ends of the street, but to ensure that you're successful, it's really on the finance person to provide the value, right? Otherwise, like the leader of the business has a lot going on, not to say that we don't, but a lot going on, and otherwise they're just not going to leverage you in the way that they should. Once you have gained trust, I think what you need to be able to do is kind of like interact with them in a way that is cognizant of their time, right? Another challenge is, if you're doing monthly forecasting or quarterly forecasting, you have probably a long range planning cycle as well as a, detailed budgeting exercise. Every time that you're having them, support a forecast is a lot of time is time taken away from them running their business. So I think what I found to be a successful strategy is when you're called into a meeting with them, if it's just like a summary meeting, or if they're going to be making a decision on, acquiring a new customer or setting up a new DC, making sure that you're asking questions in that capacity and kind of checking off all the things that you need to develop your forecast during the actual, meeting that you're already invited to. So that way you're not spending additional time outside of that, already pre-focused time together to get that information. So that would be a couple of my, I guess, tips and tricks to improving your relationship with your business partner and making sure that you're able to make the most of your time with them.
Sure, sure. This is very important because I think we need to have this vision when we are building our teams, right? We need to, from the first beginning, when we are hiring people, when we are like developing professionals that maybe when we reach a company they already are, is to make them understand that the simple role of just informing the numbers once a month, of just asking people's questions, is not enough to create the value that FP&A or the finance function can and must create, you know. And what can you share, Eric, about the finance, the business partner function too, but about this team building, you know?
Team building is very important. I'm the type of leader that I look for a whole brain. And so what that means is I look for to be surrounded by people who don't know, the things that I know, or don't have the things that I'm bringing to the table, because that way you have different perspectives, right? And so you want your team to be a holistic team, to think holistically, to be able to play in different spaces. I think is really important, right? If everybody on the team is just FP&A, then who's asking the other tough questions about the strategy, or about what's happening with the variable inputs, or what's happening about the economic, stimulants that we need to take into account. And so when you're building a team, I always say, look for people who don't necessarily have the same strengths that you have, or don't have the same skills that you've grown. It's important that they have something, right? You need to be able to collaborate and work together, but
To
it's also
connect,
important,
yes.
yeah, to connect with it. But it's also important for them to be able to bring something different to the table. So again, that you're thinking holistically. Those things for me are very important. When I also think about a team, I think about, the willingness of the people that I will be working with, or I will be leading, to follow. I think that they have to be coachable. I think that it's important for them to be, go-getters, that they have an appetite for learning, and they have an appetite for driving change, which is really important for any member of a team, right? Because when they have that appetite for driving change, they have a hunger inside of them that goes back to what Stephen was saying. You're sitting there and you're thinking holistically. You're thinking, let me anticipate the questions that are going to come, not just answer the questions that I know are here in front of me, right? And so then you start to think proactively. The team starts to think proactively, and they bring to the table, the things that may not be as visible. They bring to the table things for pause, or things for question, or things that they want you to evaluate, or things that they want you to consider. Those are the best aspects of my team that I really appreciate and that I love. And those are the people that I look to hire because they make me stronger. And we again operate as a whole brain when we're going to work with and support a leader.
Sure, sure. Very important, this, Erica. I think that one skill that is like so much needed today is communication, right? And how could we have professionals in finance that are very good in numbers, that are very good in communication too? And this applies for us too as leaders. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy to communicate, to iterate with another areas. So, Brian, for closing, what can you share about it, about how to develop this kind of soft skills in ourselves and in your teams?
Sure. You could go one way, which is what I did, is I majored in communications and journalism in college, and then moved into finance later on. But not everyone does that, and I wouldn't recommend that.
You're an exception. You know.
But I think Erica made a great point, right? We have to think of how people are different than us and have different thought processes than us, and they challenge us. And I think that's what I look for also. You have to be flexible in terms of not just me and us as leaders, but as employees, and as especially early financial analysts that are coming in. I want to look for people that if I ask a question, they also predict and try to analyze, like, what other questions could be coming from this. Because a lot of times we're so busy, right? We get a question from the CFO or the CEO or whatever. It's like, hey, can you answer this question? And they come back to us and it's just a one-liner. Well, okay, now I've got 8 more questions on top of that. So it's setting that expectation early, like, hey, when you looked at the data, when you looked at the model, what else came out from that? And so, but we have to, especially with younger people, with anybody that's coming in, this whole COVID thing has changed it. we're all virtual, and you have to do this communication and really talk to them up and educate them on this is what it is for communication. This is how to talk to different leaders and different levels within the organization.
Sure, sure. Perfect wrap up, Brian. With you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you all for such an insightful panel discussion. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled The Rise of E-Invoicing, How Technology is Streamlining Requirements Globally. Please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.